Hare Krishna. So we're reading from I'll Build You a Temple. Chapter number, let's see. Facing Challenges, October 1971 through January 1977. Saurabh sent the proposed design for the temple complex to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada approved it. Early one morning, Saurabh invited Jagat Purush to his office to see the design which he had just received back. Murti Das, who served in the construction office, was also there. Jagat Purush studied the plan, noting that Prabhupada had signed it. "Where is the theater?" he asked. He hadn't been involved in any of the planning discussions, so he hadn't really considered whether there would be a theater or not, but it suddenly dawned on him that there should be. "There's no theater," he told. "That's not part of the plan." "Why not? Don't we need one for cultural performances?" It was never really considered, and now it's too late. Srila Prabhupada has already signed off. But I think it's important. There should be a theater. Saurabh and Murti agreed, but insisted that it was too late. All the architecture has been carefully planned out, and there was no space for it. Then Jagat Purush pointed to the design and said, "Why not just take this and move it over to this side, and put this up here, and move this over there, and put the theater here?" They examined the design and looked at each other and looked at the design again, and then looked at him, and together said, "That might be possible." So they redrew the design to accommodate a theater and sent the new design to Prabhupada, and he approved it. As Jagat Purush later recalled, "It was such an exciting moment for me because I felt like I was being Krishna's instrument. I had no architectural background, but I just was moved. I believed by Supersoul, and they saw that it was possible. And that's how the theater became a part of the design." I continued to inform Prabhupada of our progress. On May 19th, I wrote him, "Regarding construction, the excavation for the 2 towers has been completed. And today, at the office of Premnath, the architect, we will finalize the tenders. After careful inquiry about what sort of contractors to use for this building, we came to the conclusion that labor contract is the best. In Bombay, there is great difficulty with labor because many are leaving for neighboring countries where they are offered very high rates. Therefore, to take the responsibility ourselves for labor will be very troublesome. Also, today at the meeting with Premnath, we will discuss the master plan and all other programs we are planning for Hare Krishna land in the future. In stock, we have 2,000 bags of cement and 10 tons of steel, sufficient to lay the foundation of the 2 towers. We are trying to complete the foundation up to the plinth level before the heavy rainfall. We will keep close contact with you regarding the progress of the construction. Then, unexpectedly, we got notice from the municipality dated May 17th, addressed to A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, stating that the construction has been unlawfully carried on or under your direction, and concluding, now I do by here give you notice that if after expiration of 24 hours from the service hereof upon you, it is found that the erection of the said building, execution of the said work is still being carried on under your direction by you, I shall, pursuant of section 354A of the said act, and an exercise of the powers centered on me, as aforesaid, direct that you be removed from the said premises by a police officer. Both the order to stop the work and the aggressive tone and threats were shocking. We investigated why the permission had been revoked and discovered that the police commissioner had issued instructions to the municipality that the permission should be canceled on account of ISKCON's being a threat to the national security. Although the police were not directly concerned with the building of the guest house, their NOC was required only for the temple. The police commissioner had written a letter to the municipal corporation stating that the whole project should be stopped. We were trying to assess who was the enemy and what was their strength. We concluded that actually we had a stronger standing with the municipality than with the police, even though Matre was opposing us at every step. There was a consensus among the officers in the municipality that he was just harassing us. At first they believed him because they didn't know us, but as they came to know us better, they realized that we were good and genuine and that Matre was just playing his usual tricks. The municipal officers were not against us, but they themselves were subject to harassment by Matre, so they couldn't go out of their way to help us, though within themselves they may have been sympathetic, and they wanted everything they did for us to be approved by the commissioner. The plans for the guest house had been sanctioned by the municipal commissioner, but again the construction was stopped by Matre through the police commissioner. Ultimately, as we later discovered, through the Home Secretary of the government of Maharashtra. So Matre was doing his best to stop us, and we wondered two things. Why was he so determined to oppose us? And how could a small fry politician like him have so much influence that he could stop our progress, though we ourselves were working through many channels with much influence? After Matre got our permission revoked, I asked Prabhupada why the man was opposing us so staunchly, and he answered that because Matre had been defeated when he had wanted to get the land and had been opposing us then, and in the end we had gotten the land. He bore a deep grudge against us, and always remembering his defeat and trying to take revenge. So here we can see a very basic kind of materialistic human nature, right? That this Matre, this municipal person, was fighting against the temple because He also had wanted the land, but he couldn't get the land. Actually, one Mr. Patil, he was our construction person. He used to work with Sorab in the construction. And even after the construction, he would do many things around the temple. Just like we have Hetatula, at that time we had Patil. And he just lived across the street. And his son worked for us for a little while too. But he was a drunkard. And, I used to preach to him, you got to leave it. And he said, no, this lifetime I can't leave it. And he died of kidney failure over here in the Rane Maidan. His kidney gave out on him. But anyway, he told me that before Prabhupada bought the land, Matri had a big bootleg liquor program. He was making moonshine here. That's what they call it in America, illegal liquor, moonshine. And here, what do they call it? Something else they call it. But in any event, he was making a lot of money, and that's why he was so upset. When the devotees bought the land, all of that was stopped. Right? So he had so much animosity that even though the land had gone to the devotees and they were trying to construct something, he would try to block it in every way. This is materialistic consciousness, right? Envy. Envy is such a powerful emotion. It is the reason we're here in the material world. And originally, we're envious of Krishna. The living entity is there, and somehow or another sees that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer and thinks, I'll also enjoy. And as soon as the living entity thinks, I will enjoy, they're in the material world. And as soon as they give up that mentality, that I'm the enjoyer, then they're in the spiritual world. Right? Even in this very lifetime, you can be in the spiritual world by giving up this mentality, this envious mentality of Krishna. Now that envious mentality of Krishna, it manifests itself in this material world by being envious of the parts and parcels of Krishna, right? Every living entity is part of Krishna. They are non-different from Krishna in quality. Sat-chit Ananda, right? So that original envy of Krishna becomes envy of Krishna's parts and parcels in this material world. Now, as long as we have envy in the heart, we're not a devotee. Prabhupada said that. He said, you can test who's a devotee, right? If they're not envious. If they're envious, they're not a devotee. Simple. So we're not devotees. We're trying to be devotees. I remember one devotee came to one boy, he came to the St. Louis temple, and he came right at Govardhan Puja. This was 1974 or something. I was a new devotee, and he came from some hippie commune, and he loved the Govardhan Puja. He loved Tulsi-Puja. Right? And then afterwards, he became a devotee. He became a Sankirtan devotee, and his name was Radha Kundas. So Radha Kundas, very enthusiastic person. He used to love to talk about Krishna. But later on, he told me that he was thinking, in order to join the temple, you had to be a pure devotee, and that all the devotees in the temple were pure devotees. So he was feeling despondent. And I didn't remember that. But he told me that he was sitting on the front porch of the temple and, kind of depressed because he wasn't a pure devotee and therefore he couldn't join the temple. And I sat down next to him and he expressed his problem. I don't remember that, but he told me that. And I explained to him that, no, nobody here is a pure devotee. We're all trying to become pure devotees, right? So that way he became enthusiastic and joined the temple. Radha Kundas. So he became Radhakundas. This is the point. We're trying to become devotees. And I've said this before, and I'm saying it again. Just because you put on tilak and you have a kantimala and you got your japa bag, right? Doesn't mean you're a devotee. If you go to sometimes the Sunday program, I think sometimes some Tapurdis, they just buy a bead bag so that they can go to the Sunday feast, this is their ticket to the Sunday feast. But this is not supposed to be a ticket to the Sunday feast. This is your ticket back home, back to Godhead, back to the spiritual world. We're all orphaned. We don't know who our mother and father is. Our mother and father is Radha and Krishna in the spiritual world. They're Hambija Pridapita. Krishna says, I'm the seed-giving father. So we're all anat, without mother, without father. We're wandering here in this material world, and somehow or another we come in contact with the devotees of the Lord, and they suggest, why don't you chant Hare Krishna? And we say, well, why not? And we begin to chant Hare Krishna. This is the beginning of our good fortune, ado shraddha. Some little faith is there that yes, by chanting this mantra, I'll be benefited. Right? By chanting this mantra, I'll be benefited. That little bit of spark of faith is enough to start one's devotional service. So by following the devotee's example of performing sadhana, rising early, chanting, following the regulator principles, then we become to the stage of anartha nivrittasya, giving up the anarthas, right? And those anarthas are accumulated in the heart. The desire for name, fame, adoration, distinction are the subtle form of the desire for sex with the opposite sex. That's the big stumbling block in the material world, the attraction for the opposite sex, right? So one may be able to avoid that, but then there's the subtle forms of that. And the subtle forms, the desire for having many followers, to being glorified. Amane na manade na kirtaniya sadahari. What does Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami say? Trinadapi sunichena tororapi sahisnana. That someone who's serious about advancing in devotional service to really obtain the goal of love for Krishna and go to the spiritual world and be with Krishna, they should make a necklace out of this verse and wear it on their neck. Right? Trinadapi sunichena tororapi sahisnana amanena manandena kirtaniya sadahari. I remember in 1974, Mayapur Festival, Srila Prabhupada was giving a lecture in the morning, and during the lecture, he said, you are all young men? No, I'm an old man and I can die at any moment, and you're all young men? You can spread this Krishna consciousness movement. And then Srila Prabhupada went into ecstasy. Externally, he was completely not there. He went somewhere. And all you could hear, there's like 300 or 400 devotees there at the festival. In those days, that was a lot of devotees. The first international festival. And you couldn't hear anything. It was so quiet. Pin drop silence. All the devotees are sitting there, looking at Srila Prabhupada, wondering what to do now. And then you hear some birds, a few birds. Like we got these sparrows, you hear a few sparrows. And then all of a sudden, one devotee starts to chant, Hamsaduta, Namo Vishnu Padaya. And the devotees, when they started to reply to that Prabhupada's pranam mantra, then Srila Prabhupada began shaking his head a little bit, and he picked up his kartals and started the kirtan. So after some time, then he went back upstairs. After that, there was a dispute. One devotee was telling Hamsaduta, you shouldn't have disturbed Srila Prabhupada's ecstasy. Why did you start chanting? That was nonsense. And Hamsaduta said, why not? We're always supposed to chant. Jagar lagaya. So they went to Prabhupada. So they said, Srila Prabhupada, when you go into ecstasy like that, what are we supposed to do? And Prabhupada said, with such innocence, just like a small child, right? He replied, well, I don't do that very much. That's humility. That's genuine humility, right? of a devotee. There was this one godbrother of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada gave great respect to his godbrothers. When Sridhar Maharaj came to meet Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada came down, sent the car, brought him to Mayapur, came down, met him at the car, brought him, personally served him prasadam, right? And orchestrated everything for Sridhar Maharaj and some other godbrothers. Then after some discussion, he accompanied back down to the car and had him dropped back over in Navadvip. So one godbrother, his name was Anand, and he was a brahmachari who was cooking in the Krishna Balaram temple. So this godbrother was a very good cook, Anand Prabhu, and two devotees that are famous cooks today in ISKCON. They lived in Vrindavan for 6 months and simply served Anand, helped him cook. They helped him cook. And to this day, those two, one's name was Apurva Das, who's a famous cook. I don't know if you know him, but in America, everybody knows Apurva Das, famous cook. And the other one is Gopati Prabhu. So Anand, some devotees came to and complained to Srila Prabhupada that when Anand goes back, back to his ashram somewhere in Vrindavan, he takes some things with him, some atta or some sabji or something he takes back. So Prabhupada said, if you have a servant, they will take something. They'll take something. And he gave the example that his father had a cloth shop, and he used to keep 1, 2 paisa, 3 paisa on the counter every day. And he knew that his servant was taking that money. But he never said anything. He kept it there specifically, and the servant would take that money every day. And he said that his father said that if he's taking that 2 or 3 paisa, then I know he's not taking other things. So he let him take that. But like that, Prabhupada was telling the devotees. But after some days, again the complaint came about Anand. So then Prabhupada said, all right, tell him he has to go. So the next day, Srila Prabhupada was leaving to go on his morning walk. Every day he would take a morning walk. That time it was called Chittikar Road. Now it's called, at least part of it is Bhaktivedanta Swami Marg. And so he came out from his house and he was getting ready just like in front of the temple. And then a nun came and met him. What a nun said, should I go now? And Prabhupada said, okay, you can go. And then Prabhupada walked a little way and got to the front gate and turned to the devotees and said, you see, this is a Vaishnava. We are telling him to go, but he's taking our permission. This is a Vaishnava. So there's so many things we need to learn about being a Vaishnava. It's a very elevated position to be actually a Vaishnava. And Srila Prabhupada is the perfect Vaishnava. By following his good example, we can also hope to one day become a Vaishnava. New allies. Gopal Krishna was expert at political and diplomatic dealings, and I was impressed with how he systematically pursued the matter of the permission from one politician to another, one office to another, and back again. They used to finish prasadam at 9 o'clock, and then both of them would go by the train to Bombay, Mantralaya, and meet all these politicians. The president of the ruling Maharashtra Congress Party, P.K. Sawant, who had been the caretaker chief minister of Maharashtra for some time, was quite pious, quite nice, he later recalled, and V.S. Page, the Speaker of the Legislative Council, the upper house in the Maharashtra legislature, was also pious and a Sanskrit scholar. So practically every day we would go to these politicians and tell them we were not getting the NOC. We would go to the police commissioner and he would say, I have no objection, go to the municipal commissioner. We would go to the municipal commissioner and he would say, I have no problem, go to that man. So we were going all day long, from morning to night, from A to B, B to C, and C to D. Because I know most of the important people in Bombay, I was able to inform Gopal Krishna about them, and we went around together meeting with the people we thought could help, especially with the permission for the temple. People I knew, or who knew people I knew, I would introduce him. And in most cases, especially in dealing with politicians, he would speak more than I would, explaining our situation and trying to enlist their help. We were afraid to approach the chief minister, S.P. Chauhan, though, because he was the highest authority, and we didn't know about him, how he would respond. One day, we met a newspaper reporter who had interviewed Chauhan in some other connection, and he had mentioned us to him. Matre was getting bad articles about us published in the newspapers. So the reporter had asked the chief minister what he thought of the devotees. Although we didn't know the chief minister, he had said, I think they are very good people. I don't believe any of the bad things being published about them in the press. Feeling encouraged, we went to Sachivalai to meet the chief minister, personal secretary, to try to get an appointment. While we were waiting in the outer room, Gopal Krishna Maharaj got the idea to just go into the chief minister's office. Usually the doors were guarded, but somehow there was no one around, and he said, let's just go in. Usually when we entered an important person's chamber without permission, the person would press a button and call the secretary to escort us out, or sometimes just shout, get out. So we weren't sure what to expect. But when we opened the door and entered, Chauhan stood up and received us as holy men with honor and respect. He offered us seats and asked how he could serve us. When we explained our predicament, he said, "I will help you. I will solve the problem. Don't worry." Unexpected mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Huh? Just think if they hadn't barged in, maybe they wouldn't have got the appointment. Gopal Krishna Maharaj was inspired from within the heart to just go inside. The Indian government had a two-tier system. There are the ministers, who are political figures, and the secretaries, who are the administrative figures, who remain in position regardless of any change of ministers. For every minister, there is a corresponding secretary, the administrator in charge of that department. The Home Department, which is considered the most important and which includes the police, is handled on the state level by the chief minister. Since he deals with both general administration and home affairs, he has both the chief secretary and the home secretary directly under him. In the central government, although there is a home minister as well as a prime minister, at times the prime minister, him or herself, will, as a prime minister, takes up the home profile because it includes internal security and is so important. On the state level, there's no home minister, but there is a home secretary. So the most powerful position in the state is the chief minister, and beneath that is the chief secretary and then the home secretary. It turned out that Matre had been meeting with the home secretary and feeding him false stories about us. And the police commissioner was under the home secretary, which is why he had kept refusing us the NOC. Chauhan, who was impartial, could see that we were being harassed. He called for the urban affairs minister, who oversaw the municipality, and for the home secretary, who oversees the police, and addressed them in Hindi. "Who is actually at fault?" he asked. "Are they guilty ones? Are they the guilty ones?" Chauhan asked. "Or are you?" It turned out that the home secretary, though in a high echelon, being the top administrative figure in the home department, was close to Matre, and Matre had been systematically brainwashing him against ISKCON. The home ministry didn't know us personally, but considering that he was a close friend of Matre's, I doubted he had been very pious or religion to begin with. When Matre had kept impressing upon him how bad we were, he had believed him and just regurgitated the bad things he had been fed. All along, it had been he who had been stopping the permission from the police. The governor was actually more of a figurehead. The powerful person was the chief minister. Had the difficulty been only the police department, the governor of Maharashtra might have been able to do something. But because the opposition was coming from the home secretary, the highest authority other than the chief minister himself, practically nothing could be done. And nothing had been done until the chief minister himself took in personal interest. Chauhan put his foot down and stopped the whole thing. And the urban affairs minister and the home secretary issued instructions that the permission for the guest house should be reinstated and the NOC for the temple should be granted. Srila Prabhupada ki. On May 26, 4 days after our meeting with Chauhan, Gopal Krishna wrote Prabhupada about what had transpired. Prabhupada replied, "It is a great credit that you have met the chief minister, and now he will give us help. Why did you not apply immediately for the NOC? You should do it immediately if you have not done already." The next day, I met the acting municipal commissioner of Bombay. And the day after that, upon his request, I submitted a letter to him summarizing the situation and the history of Matre's harassment. See Appendix B. We also, on Chauhan's request, gave him a letter describing our mission and the history of our difficulties in officially applying for the NOC from the police. The attitude of the government offices throughout the entire city changed overnight. Word quickly spread that the chief minister liked us and wasn't tolerating any more nonsense. Up until then, no one had been helping us. But when they heard that we had the chief minister's support, people became friendly, cordial, and cooperative. And wherever we went, without difficulty, we got whatever was due. On June 13th, the legal department of the municipality informed us that the earlier notice, dated May 17th, had been withdrawn and that we could proceed with the construction as per the plans already approved. We were jubilant. It was a huge defeat for Matre. Not only was he revoking of our permission overturned, but we were poised to get full plans passed, including the temple. On July 33rd, I phoned Srila Prabhupada in the US and informed him of the development, that we had gotten the NOC, and spoke of it on his walk the next day. Prabhupada, we have got permission, the no objection certificate, Tamal Krishna. Really? For the temple or the Prabhupada? Temple, Bombay, Tamal Krishna. Really? Prabhupada, the chief minister has sanctioned. He's a very nice man. Tamal Krishna. Nayak? Prabhupada, not Nayak. Nayak was a rogue. Tamal Krishna. A new one? Prabhupada. Yes, Chauhan. Tamal Krishna. So, now we can build 2 towers and the temple. Prabhupada. Now bring the money. Tamal Krishna. Srila Prabhupada, what is the plan? To send the money or books? Prabhupada. Money. By that time, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, although he was the GBC for Bombay, after he wanted to go back to America to preach. So his friend, Vishnu Jan Maharaj, had a bus. And then the bus were Deities. And their names were Radha Damodar. Now why did Prabhupada gave him the name Radha Damodar? You know why he gave him the name Radha Damodar? Because the bus rocks, so the deities were tied at the waist so that they didn't fall down. And so Prabhupada gave him Radha Damodar. Makes sense, right? So he had one old school bus, and at one time he was traveling from Texas to Oklahoma, and it's some brahmacharis, you know, there was some problem in the bus. They got out of the bus, right? The bus caught fire. They ran in, saved the deities, and watched the whole bus go up in flames. But when Tamal Krishna Maharaj joined, they got a new bus. They got a better bus. They got a, it was used, but it was a, like the buses, tour buses they have. So they took out all the seats, and they made an altar for Radha Damodar. They made a nice altar, and behind the altar was a kitchen and a place for the pujari to shower. And in the front was open, and devotees would do kirtan, and they would travel in the bus. So in 1975, they added more buses, and they added more deities. So that time there were, I think, 3 sets of Gaur Nitai, and they added 3 more buses. So each bus, the program for the bus was they would park next to a college or a university, and they would and they would distribute magazines, Back to Godhead magazines, and they would also do kirtan, and they would also distribute prasadam. And what would they distribute? They had a special formula. They would distribute halava. You've not seen that kind of halava. You've had halava in India. They make it with Gemini Vanaspati or something, you know. You can go right now and see the halava they make out there. Gemini Vanaspati, whatever that is, right? This is halava made with pure butter, okay? Pure butter. And in it, sometimes they would put strawberries, sometimes they would put figs, sometimes they would put peanut butter. Peanut butter halava, you ever had it? Really good. This was the secret weapon of Radha Damodar, halava. And another thing they had, the nectar drink. Nectar drink. What was the nectar drink? The nectar drink was strawberries, orange juice, and buttermilk with a healthy amount of sugar. Right? Strawberries, orange juice, and buttermilk. And it was a knockout. You just give those students halava and nectar drink, and they come back every day. And they used to preach to them, hey, get on the bus, we're going traveling. And many would just jump on the bus and come with them. So that was the program for the bus. And connected to the bus was 5 vans. 5 vans. So the vans each would have 5 or 6 devotees that would be connected to one bus. And the bus would park near a university and college, and the vans would go out and sell books. So they had 100 devotees in Radha Damodar, and most of them were out selling books. So a huge amount of funds was going to the BBT from the Radha Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party. That's why Prabhupada told Tamal Krishna Maharaj, bring the money, bring the money. And the money from the BBT was what built this, Hare Krishna land. We finally, after maybe 10 or 15, 20 years, we put a plaque out there commemorating the assistance of the North American BBT for building this temple. Later, the same morning, Prabhupada wrote me, I have received your report via telephone, and it's very good news that you have received the NOC for the construction of the temple. So you begin the work, and money will come to you by the grace of God. Don't worry, just finish the buildings as soon as possible, and somehow or other money will come. In Bombay, you collect as much as you can, and the balance money will be sent, rest assured. I'm instructing Rameshwar to send Guru Kripa's collection to Bombay. So you just finish all the buildings as soon as possible. You must also keep proper account, and not a single farthing should be wasted. Here's a very important instruction. Not a single farthing should be wasted. I will see the accounts personally when I return to Bombay. So how important are accounts? Prabhupada personally saw the accounts. Not that he didn't see, he saw. He wanted to know, okay, bring me the book, bring me the ledger, give me the report, right? It's not that he just said, okay, Krishna's bringing money, so yeah, all right, it's okay. No, how strict he was. Not a farthing should be wasted. Not a single paisa. Prabhupada was so tight, really tight. There was one kid in 26 Second Avenue. His name was Stephen or Stephan or something like that. And he was a little crazy. So he wanted to put gas on himself and kill himself, you know, emulate himself. So he came to Prabhupada and said that Prabhupada was the treasurer in 26 Second Avenue. So he came and said, I want to buy some gasoline. Can you give me $4? And at that time, a gallon of gas was only 25 cents. So afterwards, the devotees came and said that this boy's crazy. And Prabhupada said, I thought he was a little crazy because he asked me $3 for gasoline when it's only 25 cents. But anyway, Srila Prabhupada was very tight. And he was very cautious about accounts, that all the money that is collected should go into the bank before it is spent. That was the main principle. He said, after you do that, half of your accounting is finished. So it's very important to follow Srila Prabhupada's good example and keep the accounts and have reports so that the management knows what's being spent and how much is being collected, etc. Why would Srila Prabhupada say, see that every farthing is spent properly, not wasted? Right? Money can be wasted, right? One has to be careful. Right? Don't waste money. Don't waste anything. When Srila Prabhupada was on a morning walk in Los Angeles, well, first of all, a big dog came out, you know, and started barking at the devotees. And Srila Prabhupada went, "Hut!" And the dog ran back. So they went a little further, another dog came out, was barking, and the devotee went like that, "Hut!" But the dog attacked him. So don't try to imitate Srila Prabhupada. You should know what you're doing. And they went further, and there was a tap that was, somebody had left the tap on somebody's house, and water was being wasted. So Prabhupada said, go there and turn the tap off. So the devotee went and turned the tap off. And he says, if everything is Krishna's energy, it should never be wasted. So Prabhupada in that way was instructing the devotees about not wasting things. These words, when I returned to Bombay, were music to my ears. Prabhupada swung right into action. On the same day he wrote, Guru Kripa, I may inform you that we have received permission for constructing our Juhu temple. I want that your collection should be sent there so that the buildings may be completed as soon as possible. And to Rameshwar, I may inform you that in our Bombay they have received the sanction for constructing the temple in Juhu until further order. Whatever money you collect should be sent to Bombay. You should print books as far as possible, and whatever money you collect should be sent to Bombay. Guru Kripa has informed by telephone that he will be sending almost $75,000. This should be sent to Bombay. A few days later, he wrote the governor ready. So far as our Bombay temple is concerned, I have received one telegram from our secretary there stating, NOC from temple attained. It is understood that the present chief minister, Sri S.P. Chauhan, is a kind gentleman who is religiously disposed, and he has kindly given the order of NOC. So we'll stop there. If there's any questions, you can ask. Mike? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram. Ram Ram, Hare.
Thank you very much. Very nice, wonderful pastime. I heard that Srila Prabhupada said that if somebody is making trunk calls and phone calls, he is not a good manager. Something like that?
No, he said, you Americans, when there's no need to call, you call. hello, how are you? Yeah, when you should write, you call. And when there's no need at all, then you write. So like that he was instructed. Prabhupada didn't use the telephone much. And I can understand, because in those days the telephone didn't work. When I came to India, if you wanted to call downtown, all you would get when you picked up the phone is hello, 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 hello. Couldn't get any work done on the telephone. In America, it was, compared to India at that time, was so well organized. They had a special facility, it was called a Watts line. And as many calls as you made, it was one, long distance calls, it was one price, fixed price. It was for commercial organizations. It was called a Watts line. So when there was a devotee named Keshava Bharati Swami, that time he was Prabhu, and he would be in New York City, and he would get all the information from the Sankirtan devotees traveling all over America in the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party. You know, they had 20, 30 vans out there. So they would send in their scores and whether they got arrested or all the information. He knew where the hot places were, where the good places were. So he would tell the other devotees. But this was a lot of phone calls, right? But on the Watts line, if he made the call, then it was free. I mean, it came under one fixed price. And if the call, so what they used to do was, they would make a call, a collect call, right, to Keshava Bharati. And they would say, then the operator would say, this is a collect call for Keshava Bharati. But they gave him some other name, so it was easy for the operator to pronounce. And then he would say, he's in a board meeting, but if you leave a number, I'll have him call you back. So then that devotee would leave the number, and then Keshava Bharati would call back, and then the call was, you know, it came under the fixed Watts line charge. So that way, a lot of information was being passed around for the devotees. And anyway, what was the question?
Same thing. Prabhupada did not like making phone calls. Then
yeah, he didn't.
Now we make so many.
Yeah, he didn't use the phone much, but yeah, that was the point. Is that in ISKCON in America, they did use the phone, and they used it for Sankirtan, and they used it successfully. And when I came here, there wasn't much book distribution going on, and because having been in Radha Damodar and see how Radha Damodar was organized and how book distribution was going on, I tried to do that here, but I realized you can't do anything on the phone, practically speaking, right? And then slowly it changed. Somewhere in the mid-'80s, they had STD calls. There was a big revolution in India. You know, you could actually, before, if you wanted to have a long distance call, you had to book the call, and then they call you back. And if it was a lightning call, then it was like 1,000 times what a regular call was. Slowly it changed, right? But Prabhupada didn't use the phone much. Very rarely. Any other questions?
So Mr. Matre, you know, he gave so much hard time to devotees, but he did a very good thing for us.
Later on. Later on.
Later on, 96, Prabhupada Sandhya, Nanda Kishore and myself, we just go to his house every alternate day and give prasadam, like our rasgulla, rasmalai. Because we want, they just told that the Prabhupada Bhakti Vedanta Marg, you have to do. So we are trying to this front from Hare Krishna land front Bhakti Vedanta Marg. But Matre, he said, no, I will give you very nice road for you, but this road will be Mukteswar Marg. So he took this, but he gave from
Mitibai.
from Devanand Banglo to Mitibai, which is a very big road, about more than 2 kilometers, and that is contribution. And then he organized a program in our auditorium where municipality, commissioner, he himself, all were there, present there, and then the name ceremony was given that time. But after that, Bhaktivedanta Marg, this is this is another road name was
Gulmohur Marg.
Gulmohur Road. Then Gulmohur Road, these people, local people, they just went to governor. That time, Mr. Alexander was the governor. So, so they got an order that they turned to again Gulmohur Road, Bhaktivedanta Marg. Then Ravi Mehra and myself, we went to, when it was happened, then we went to Balasaheb Thackeray. That time there was Vajpayee, Mr. Vajpayee, he was the first Prime Minister, but there is some problem happened. On few days, he gone. So we went to, Ravi Mehra and myself, we went to meet Balasaheb Thackeray. But Balasaheb, that day he was so busy because he was talking to Central Minister and we couldn't meet. Then we went to High Court and file a order, stay order, file for stay order. And then immediately they just kept for some time. But later on these people, they didn't follow up and we got the order in favor of Bhaktivedanta Marg.
And Govinda made the signs from, like you said, he put the plaques, and they go all the way up to Mitibai College. Huh? 5 signs, yeah. So this book is up till the temple opening, and we could write another book, maybe 2 books, about what happened after the opening. 50 years is coming in 2028, 50 years, the temple opening. So a few things happen, I'm sure. Srila Prabhupada ki, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi.